Good evening, friends. Welcome back again to Karateng. Well, today I'm not exactly in Karateng, but I'm right on top of a hill called RIAT Hills, right above Kisumu City. And RIAT is about maybe 20 minutes from Karateng. And I took the whole crew, my supervisors, my sisters, and my friends. We went to check out this absolutely magnificent hacienda that is perched right on top of RIAT Hills, overlooking the beautiful Lake Lolwe. Those of you who have been to RIAT Hills, now take a look at that view down there. This family has an amazing view of Kisumu City and Lake Lolwe. If you get a chance to visit Kisumu and you have not made it to RIAT Hills, I strongly encourage you to check it out. It's an amazing place. In fact, it sort of reminds me of Beverly Hills, primarily by its terrain. And I hope in the future, once the infrastructure follows, we will be giving Beverly Hills a competition. So yes, RIAT Hills is amazing. So this is a friend that I've recently met. We have connected so well. He lives in diaspora. I may not say a whole lot about him and his family for privacy reasons, but we got to link up because of the YouTube chats we've been having back and forth. And so after chatting with him, he graciously allowed me to come and check out his project over here and offer some recommendations and suggestions and even share information about technicians that I've worked with over the years. Now that's something I've recently taken up, and I really enjoy it when I have the opportunity. And again, if there are folks doing amazing work out there from diaspora or folks who are not living in the village and you'd like us to go check out your project, feel free to share your info in the comment section. Whenever possible, I would not mind coming to check out your project. So today's video is more of a follow-up about the many questions that typically come up about construction. People asking about questions about how, who does it, why, timelines, and the professionals that I have traditionally used across some of the projects that I've completed. So I'm going to focus the discussion more about some of the realities of building remotely. And this applies to people who live in diaspora or people who live in cities and have their projects done for them back in the village through proxies. So in this video, I'm going to share some of the contacts of two of my main masons who are exceptional masons that folks looking to build can use if they so desire. And then I'll talk about the benefits of building remotely through my own experiences and those of my friends. And then I'll discuss some of the challenges that typically happen when you're building using proxies. And then in the end, as I've always done, I'll share a few suggestions about some things you can do to manage the risks that come with building remotely. Now, the reality is many of us don't have the opportunity to be on site building because oftentimes these structures take some time, depending on how somebody is prepared financially. I've seen a few folks who are very ready financially. They hit the ground and within a few months, their project is done. But that often means that these individuals also do jobs that allow them to be gone or to be home for that long. The average person does not have the ability to be gone for 4 months plus building and constructing in the village. So people who live in cities and people who live in diaspora, in many cases, have to rely on proxies to get things done. So this is not one of those things that a lot of us have choices. We just have to do what we have to do. And so I'm going to share some of the things that I've learned through my experiences, and also at the end offer suggestions of what things people can do to manage the risk. So let's start with the benefits of building remotely when you're just sitting from either the city or diaspora, sending money and doing video calls and phone calls and getting things done. So the first obvious one is that when you're building remotely, obviously you're not living on site. And so you don't have to change your living arrangements to accommodate the ongoing construction work. I've seen sometimes, especially folks who live in the village, have to live at the same site where their buildings are moving on. And so living on a construction site comes with its own sets of challenges, primarily around privacy. And so if you're working remotely, that is not a worry that you have to think about, because you live where you live, you send money, you do calls, and things get done. So that's a massive advantage. The second advantage of building remotely is that you don't have to worry about on-site logistical work, because these things are often left to whoever is in charge on the ground. So things such as hiring folks, whether it's short-term or long-term, that'll be managed by somebody else. How materials get to site and get used properly, that is managed by other people. Things such as permits and dealing with what we call kanjo, who are usually like city officials coming to inspect the site. Well, I don't know whether it's actually inspection, because my experience with city folks is that the only thing they come to do at your site is to collect bribes. They could not care less what you're building, whether it's structurally sound. They simply come, get your money, and then they take off. So when you're building remotely, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And by the way, those city folks can be very stressful. I've had to deal with them a few times. I've not enjoyed my experiences. But thankfully, there's ways to manage that problem that I will share in another video. Now, the third benefit of building remotely, of course, is that you don't have to worry about some of the daily HR issues that pop up. Sometimes at a particular site, you may have anywhere from 50 to 100 people working, doing different things. And when you have so many people working at your site, HR issues can be really magnified. It's one thing to work with 1 or 2 people here and there. It's a whole different world when you have 100 people working at the same time. I've had cases where amongst workers, fights break out over some of the silliest things around, or just things that are really deserve attention. Sometimes people fall sick. At one point, I had one of my workers fall sick at 2 a.m. in the morning. He was severely sick, and we had to manage that on site. Also, injuries happen. The issue of how we manage safety in Kenya is quite unique, and I hope to address that in a future video. But of course, injuries do occur, like where a hammer flies off the third floor to come and hit somebody on the ground floor. Things like that happen. And so preventing injuries and dealing with injuries when and if they occur are some daily headaches that you never have to worry about if you're building remotely. And then, of course, number 4, because there are many people who are shouldering the primary task, you can simply focus on making the money to get things paid for. And then, of course, the biggest benefits to me is, as I was saying, the biggest benefit is that you come back to a completely finished product for the most part, depending on how far your folks have gone. Now, if there's any other benefits out there that I'm forgetting, be sure to share that in the comment section. So that said, working remotely, while has advantages, there are many problems associated with working remotely. And I'm just going to highlight about 5 of these. The first and one of the most prominent issues you're going to run into is the issue of quality control. In fact, many of the buildings that I've checked out since I've been moving back and forth between the US and Kenya are typically done really well in the exteriors. The exteriors are amazing. But then you walk inside and you wonder, where did things begin falling apart? So lots of homes in Kenya look really good outside, and then you walk inside, you see massive problems. And to me, the main issue begins with the quality control. So in some cases, it just turns out that the people who are working on site just missed instruction. So what they're delivering is really different than what the owner intended. In other cases, you have professionals who simply disregard owner instruction. And I recently had that experience with a tile person who simply just listened to me and let me walk away. When I came back, he just said, "Oh, I knew you were wrong, and so I decided to do something different." They can just blatantly disregard your instruction. I had a friend of mine who wanted an open plan kitchen. So he gives the work to a mason. When he comes back, they've created a wall and created some small hole. And the mason simply told him, "You Americans just don't know how we do things at home, that this is the correct thing to be done." So there are cases where they simply dismiss the instruction you give them. In other cases, they're more focused on delivering what they like and not what you like. And some of the masons I've worked with in Kenya have no shame about that. They're simply focused on giving you what they like, especially things like color. Currently, one of my friends is actually painting his house white indoors. and he's fighting with this person who is the main painter, because the main painter wants to paint like a nursery school type of stuff. So yeah, sometimes they simply give you what they care for. Now, the other problem that I noticed too with quality control is the issue of size translation, where some of us use inches and then they translate them into some other measurements, and those translations, often things get lost in between. And then the last issue that I think affects quality control comes with the selection of the right materials, particularly things like tiles. Like in my case, my tiles were selected when I was not there. The pictures they sent me and the actual tiles really were slightly different. And that's why, in the end, I'm going to mention why I always recommend that with fittings, you probably want to select your materials before you go back to diaspora. Now, the second major problem is pilferage. And here are some of the ways that they steal stuff. Sometimes they overquote things, like my glass guy overquoted glass, and then they installed the glass, and then the extra ones they were selling in collaboration with some folks on the ground. Sometimes they just bring in wrong quantities of, especially with stones and sand. They give you less than you pay for. During transportation, between where you buy stuff and where your site is, things can get lost in between. And at the source, things can go wrong too. Like you pay for something in the front office, and then what comes out of the back is different. At one point, I bought 2 bathtubs. By the time I got home, the 2 bathtubs were completely different measurements, yet I paid for the exact same thing. Now, sometimes they actually use faulty instruments to measure stuff, especially with wood. Those tape measures, many of them are doctored, so they're not the standard measures that you're used to. And of course, they sell things on site. Like my plumber sometimes would ask me to buy extra stuff. And because he knows he works in places I can't inspect, he would use less and then sell the rest. Or sometimes they actually buy cheaper materials and then they sell you at premium rates. And then, of course, the other problem with working remotely is that you have limited opportunities to make changes in real time. Because sometimes ideas can change, and if you're working remotely, you can't do that easily. Oftentimes when you work remotely, you miss what's going on the ground. Conflicts, of course, with people who are working for you, whether it's family and other folks you've hired. Now, in terms of the masons I'm going to recommend, there's 2 folks. I'm going to recommend a guy called Madeka. His number is +254 728 85 4346. Then the second mason is called Mr. Johnson. His number is +254 7407 27644. These 2 are amazing masons. Now, unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I may not get the time to talk to you about some of the ways to minimize risk. So I'm hoping to circle back during the next video about construction, where I have about a list of 10 different suggestions. Some of them may be new compared to what I shared in the past. So stay tuned for the next video. And if you have questions of things you want to see me show in our channel, please let me know. Or if you've got a question you want me to answer, please let me know. I hope today's video was worth your time. If it was, I hope you subscribe. Thank you and have a great rest of your day. Bye.